So today in this video, we're going to be breaking down a 18 Magisters. Now, this was not our first time timing this, but this was an incredibly fast run. And even with a couple of deaths, we still had a ton of time left on the board. So I thought it was an interesting run to talk about because there's some really cool things going on. Talent build will be down below along with like the Raider IO link and any other details, like including like route and stuff. But basically, starting off this dungeon, we're going to be running Brewmaster, Sub Rogue, Arms Warrior, Marksman Hunter, and of course the Restoration Shaman. Now I'm going to be getting Kick, committing my Ox pretty early in this pull, and my Trinket, because what I'm going to be doing is running up to this wall and chi bursting through. Now, when you cast a chi burst, when you're up against that wall, you're going to see that 3 of these like enforcers are going to come running through. Now this adds a fair bit of tank damage, but it does justify the lust right off the rip. I wouldn't do this if you're not playing with like a pre-made group, but when these mobs come through, it makes this pull a little bit more useful, and it makes the next pull a little less scary, especially for the tank. And so committing big cooldowns here, we're mostly keeping track of these casters. Now, unfortunately, the triangle marked caster kind of got stuck in the statue when I did this, so I do need to be careful in the future, and ended up missing out on a lot of damage, and basically was evading. And so you can see here, the pull pretty much goes down, but this caster is still up, which makes this kind of part like of the run really awkward because we kind of need to kill it, but we also need to kick it. And then I don't have a kick for this Magister, so it's just going to kind of cast on me while I run down this hallway. But similar second pull setup, we're going to be running all the way down through, and now we're going to be vibing here. So one other thing that I'm going to be doing in this dungeon is I am running Linked Spirits Transcendence, which means that I'm going to be pairing myself to Nama for this run, so I'm able to transcend to him as my anchor, which means that I never actually have to place Transcendence. So I'm going to jump down, grab these Kodai, and then I'm going to port back up to the top of this like little platform. So these Codexes won't be able to hit us through line of sight, but they are going to make their way into the pole eventually. They do have less health than these Magisters, so by the time they do end up getting here, everything should die fairly evenly, and the Codexes that were in this pole that we just were in are already dead. So the AoE damage should be at a minimum. Then we're going to need to commit some AoE stuns to make sure that some of these casts aren't going off at the same time. So blind, the polymorph is going to go down here. We actually got a meld, and then now we just have one Magister left. So that was a pretty fast-paced start to this dungeon. Now the rest of it going forward is going to be pretty tame in terms of like this library pull. So this is a interesting dungeon because there are a couple of choke points, and I do think that the trash at the very beginning is crazy hard, and then the end of the dungeon is crazy easy. And so this dungeon is like really difficult. We actually, before this run, we had like 3 or 4 19 Magisters, I'm pretty sure, that we just like straight up bricked. Maybe it was only 2, I don't know. We had a bunch of Magisters though that we bricked before this, so we felt pretty comfortable in here because we had already been in here a couple of times today. So anyways, this pull is pretty normal. It's like 7 codices and 1 pyromancer. Now, unfortunately, we did commit true shot here, and this is something that we talked about at the end of the run because the next pull is going to go to the like a little bit south, and I'll explain why. But basically, our hunter popped his major CDs on this pull to blow it up, though the codexes are not crazy hard. And so the problem with blowing it up here is that the next pull, which is really, really hard, probably one of the hardest pulls in here, is not going to go down quickly. So anyways, all we're trying to do in pull in this room is the patrol. So I had to like locate it and then get to the right angle. And we're going to be walking with it through this doorway without pulling the right-hand pack into the sentry, into this pyromancer. Now our goal, and the way that you pull this, is you have to pull the sentry and the pyromancer almost at the same time. There's obviously a little bit of leeway here, but basically by pulling it like this, the ignition won't line up with the repulsing slam until the 3rd ignition, 2nd repulsing slam. So the idea is now everyone should be nuking the pyromancer, which ironically enough I am not targeting right now. And I also messed up my Tiger's Lust, so I got stuck in that flame strike. Not a big deal, popped a couple extra defensives, but we are trying now to kill all of this at the exact, or we're trying to kill the worms not before or after the slam. So we did live here. I don't have Tiger's Lust quite yet. It's coming up now. I'm going to Tiger's Lust myself out. And now we are trying to finish off this Pyromancer. But unfortunately, because we sent CDs, this is going to not go super great. Spell Fleck goes off. 10% of the Pyromancer's health gone. But unfortunately, right here, this is the ignition into the dispersal, which ends up killing Stinky Pete, our hunter, and then Carrot unfortunately gets targeted by the healer at the exact same time. Honestly, we should have probably kidneyed there on that mob, but losing 2 DPS means that they're going to kind of slowly be running back, and we're going to be handling this pull for a long period of time. So these were the only 2 deaths, I believe, in our entire run. The rest of this run is really clean. We had talked after this run was over, and we're like, hey, we should probably like adjust some kidneys, some overlap with CCs while that AoE is happening, especially on the healer who's applying really nasty dots. we also probably want to make sure that we have all of our cooldowns available for this pull. And so we have decided to like allocate True Shot here if we happen to play this comp again. Our third DPS fluctuates. I really like playing with Stinky Captain here. He's a very, very good and very smart hunter, but it's not always a consistent comp, as you guys have probably seen some of my other commentaries where we're running with like DKs and other warriors and warlocks, and the comps have just been all over the place this season. We don't have like a solid third right now because someone that we like to play with is still gearing up. Some other people are like not around all the time, and it's been chaotic. Anyways, I pull these worms in late. We're going to get a nice big damage buff and healing buff here, and then we're going to go into this next pull. Now, this familiar is the secret deadly mob in this pull. The Pyromancer does AoE damage, and then right when the ignite comes out, the guy ports. So I leg swept there to delay it to make sure that we're healthy for the ignition, and we are focusing the Skull mob. Once this guy dies, the pull is actually going to be super safe, and in theory, you can actually pull this onto boss because there's not a ton of damage from the boss until a little bit later in the fight. There is some sequencing that my group is probably going to try to work out so we know exactly when we can pull the boss based on ignition timing, so there isn't any kind of crazy overlap. Anyways, now that the Pyromancer is pretty close to dead, I'm going to be grabbing the boss because he starts with a tank slam, and the first AoE hit for the group doesn't come out for a little bit of time. Now, I like to put him on the stairs here because normally you can use the stairs to counter the knockback. It was a little weird there for me, though, because of the flame strike. That's the problem with pulling this guy into the trash pull. And then here's the first group knockback. Right after this group knockback, roots come out, and as a monk, you can Tiger's Lust a friend. I generally don't because we have plenty of root removals in our composition. We can Dispel and Dwarf. I believe Disengage works with Post Haste. Bladestorm works. You can Vanish it, I believe, as well, and Meld, or Cloak of Shadows. Basically, rogues can get out of it pretty easily, but Tiger's Lust can help. Anyways, first two smashes, I'm then going to provoke the boss and get him in front of this door. If you don't know, getting him in front of this doorway here bugs out the orb spawns, and most of them spawn outside of the encounter space. And so all you have to do is soak 4 total orbs, 2 on either side, and once this soak happens, this is just a burn phase. If you mess this up, you have infinite orbs to soak, which is not fun, can lead to group wipes, intermissions crazy hectic, and then all we're doing, because we didn't clear the trash on the other side of the room, we are always going to be playing on this left side. So I'm going to start with the slam. Slam's going to knock me back. I'm going to transcend back to Nama there, and then we're going to be kind of just like vibing right here. So tank smash, group smash, root, and then it's just a rinse and repeat until the burn. Now, our hunter's going over to get ready to grab the crystal. I'm going to utilize these stairs to counter the next tank knockback. If you notice here, I'm going to actually, I fortunately turned my camera because the ceiling there. But as you can see, didn't get knocked back at all, was very chill. I'm going to put the boss back into basically the poop as close as I can. So it's overlapped, taking up as little space as possible. We're going to get knocked, provoking to speed taunt him to the door. And we are now once again in position. So I always like to soak the right-hand side facing the boss, and my other DPS or healer will be grabbing the other side. So they can either take turns soaking to make sure their stacks drop, or they can just soak 2. Ideally, you soak 1 and 1, just to keep damage really, really low, so the healer can also do DPS here, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, as long as everyone's living. And now we are pulling Arcanotron Custos back to, again, these stairs. I'm going to use the stairs to counter this knockback here. As you can see, I'm getting into position, and it's just a simple like rinse and repeat at this point. He's going to do the arcane smash thing here, arcane explosion, which will send us back towards the door. Not as powerful as a knockback, and then once again, kind of putting him up into the poop here. And this is going to be our final burn phase. If he will die in the burn or right before, I believe he dies in the burn. So here's the slam. I'm going to get knocked. I'm going to transcend to Nama immediately, and without wasting that global because I'm playing Link Spirits. And once this next slam comes out, we're going to put him right up against the door. And just like that, we are absolutely vibing. So this is actually I'm very happy with my performance on this boss. Not necessarily my damage. I feel like I can always do more damage in single target especially. But my positioning I felt like was really, really clean. The way that I countered the knockbacks was awesome. And yeah, I'm just overall actually pretty happy with my performance here. So anyways, I see that the boss is going to die. So I'm heading over to grab the next pull. We are going to be grabbing these 3 men and walking them back to the worms. So we're going to be slowly killing these worms over time, and doing our best. Now, I'm being very cautious here because we had actually a 19 that got bricked because something pulled through the wall and ended up pulling one of the sentries, and the 3 familiars, and that instantly wiped us in our 19, and it could have been Flurry Strike, but I wasn't sure. But Flurry Strike has like a larger splash radius, I believe, than Keg Smash. I might have to actually fact check that. But anyways, we're gonna just rotate between these two worm packs while killing this Spellbreaker. Spellbreakers are crazy lethal, especially in these higher keys. Your group has to be really good about avoiding getting hit by them if possible. And what I mean by that is you can feign, you can vanish, and you can meld it. So those are all really powerful racials and abilities. So basically everyone is targeting it, and if they're getting targeted by the runic glaive, like throw, they just meld or try to avoid it as best they possibly can. Now we're going to be heading into the next pack with a 10-stack worm for about 30 seconds. I'm going to run ahead just a little bit to start the RP. We're doing this pack by itself just for a second. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to run forward. I'm going to paralysis the Magister to the right, and then I'm going to taunt the Spellbreaker, making sure that this and the familiar come in. So we're splitting up the casters here so we don't have to worry about more than one cast going off. And everyone, again, is targeting Skull, the Spellbreaker, and making sure that, again, like I said, we're locking down the Magister. This is probably the hardest hallway in here, and we're going to actually end up committing our lust to the next pull. It's essentially going to be one big chain, but once we get to the end of the hallway, that's where we're going to commit our second lust of the dungeon. Now, ideally, we would be there already. Having 2 deaths on that pull earlier definitely set us back a little bit on our timer. Normally, lust is coming up about here, and then we can get off cooldown pretty quickly after that. But anyways, now that the caster is dead, I'm actually going into the next pack and starting to get it ready. And then once this Spellbreaker dies, this skull mark, it's at like 10% health or 15% health or so. Once he dies, we're going to go into the next pack. Unfortunately, we do need those purges from those healers. Those healers put out Power Word Shield generally on the lowest targeted mob, and it's a pretty massive absorb. It's like a 15% absorb. Anyways, now that the Spellbreaker's dead, we're going to the last pack. We're popping Lust. We have all of our CDs rolling. Unfortunately, my cow just faded, but my damage doesn't matter as much as our like warrior and hunter. So True Shot should be coming up, I think, right now. He's going to probably commit that in just a second here, or if he hasn't already committed it, and we're just kind of trying to blast this pack as quick as possible. We did mark Spellbreaker, at least the Skull Spellbreaker. There are 2 in this poll. Getting 1 down extremely fast will make this poll a lot easier. Some people like to kind of even cleave so they both die at the same time, but we have found that having multiple active is just like a death sentence, unless maybe Residents have an easier time, but this hallway sucks. It's so bad. And now we're kind of just vibing. Luckily, we have a really powerful comp for this. So outside of our healer, everyone can like meld, vanish, feign. All right, heading into Serenel Sunlash. This guy does have a little bit of spawning RP. I was just jumping around being a little bored. I transcended back to Nama for no reason. And now we are getting into the poll. Ideally, you want to RNG luck your way into the bleed always going on the tank. Unfortunately, it does not. Now, if you're ever a tank on this fight and you notice you're taking a lot of damage, it's probably because you're playing without a purge. This guy will randomly buff himself with arcane damage increase, or like his melee attacks will deal extra arcane damage, but it's a purgeable dot, or a purgeable debuff, I should say. And so luckily, I'm playing with a shaman and a hunter who both have the ability to purge both between purge and trank shot. And so them keeping it clean means that I'm never really taking damage on this fight. So I'm just like a glorified DPS basically. And hoping that the runic marks mostly go on me. I think it only went on like me once during this entire encounter, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. This fight's pretty simple. You're going to take turns just dropping your debuff. Nothing crazy has to happen here. You want to be careful with who is dropping, and when people drop, you don't want to like drop back to back really quickly. It's a good idea to ping the player who's going to soak, just in case you're in a group without comms. Like if you're a healer, for example, just ping who you want to soak first. Hopefully they get the message. If you're doing a high key like this, people should know. Generally speaking, you want your healer to generally drop first, but the way that we do it is that shaman is super tanky. So normally our shaman lets our DPS drop first, healer second priority, followed by tank. Now, unfortunately, I did get silenced here. Luckily, I can still trinket though while silenced. So I committed that dread scale just so I can help reduce some of the damage I was taking here. And yeah, that's the fight. This fight's pretty boring. I'm glad they fixed it, but I also kind of miss when this fight was super cheesable by classes that can invis. You used to be able to feign, shadow meld, and vanish the runic mark. So if you knew you were getting targeted with the arrow over your head, you could meld as it came out and it wouldn't apply it to you. That was obviously extremely broken, so Blizzard did fix that. Here, I finally got one after being in the fight for 2 minutes. I finally have one of the marks, and it's a very good mark. So our Nama, our rogue, was able to cloak it, so it's only on me, so no one's taking damage here. And I'm just going to be able to hold this essentially forever, but I will end up dropping because I don't want to cause more group damage later in the fight when we have to step into this barrier. The hardest set of runes that come out is always going to be when the bubble isn't down, the suppression zone. So it's basically the first set of every phase. Each phase starts when the absorption or when the wave of silence hits, basically. Sub 15% though, we're looking really good. We're eventually going to be able to deploy our Touch of Death. I am sitting on it till he is in execute range. Wave of silence is coming out, and we step in, we step out, and this is a new phase. The bubble's about to disappear, and these next set of runic marks, you are in danger for a bit. Not sure why I pulled up my talent page there, but it's fine. Touch of Death is able to be deployed now, and we are now heading up the ramp. I forgot I had my Transcendence set to Nama, so Karid leaps up, Nama shadow steps to Karid, and then I transcend to Nama. So that's kind of how that sequence worked there. We can start channeling it pretty early. Now, something really weird happened in this run. Our ads bugged out. So normally this hallway, you have Magisters coming down, and they're like, help, the Void are infiltrating. That never happened. As you can see, we're kind of waiting here. And we're like, okay, I guess we're just going to fucking go. So we had to actually make up a route here at this point because this isn't normal. Obviously, we get a good bit of percent from this hallway. I was kind of doubling back just to check to see maybe if they spawned late. But that was it. So now we're just gonna be like, okay, we're gonna pull this Void Walker. Luckily, I kind of had a little a backup plan in my head, which is pulling this left side caster, and then we're gonna pull the right side caster shortly after. So I'm gonna commit our Ox here. This is a scary pull, but we're gonna be able to pop all our cooldowns. True Shot, Avatar, and Shadow Blades, I believe, is committed inside a dance. So this pull should hopefully get deleted pretty quickly. Now these guys suck. These giant Void Rift or Shadow Rift Void Callers because well, they spawn ads on a 0.5-second sequence, and it's very hard for a lot of tanks, even Brewmaster, to do damage that quickly to be able to get threat on everything. And so whenever those ads are spawning, ideally you want everyone standing in melee. I am so sorry if Discord's pings have been going off this whole time. I just realized right now that that's been happening, so I am so sorry. But I'm going to keep it in because fuck it, I don't want to start this video over. Anyways, now you can see that we pulled the left side pack, or the right side pack, I should say. We do have one caster. I'm going to end up like ringing it into us. And we are just watching these Void Terrors. Void Terrors require one melee kick. It is a fear. It's very scary. We're not playing Tremor Totem in here. So as long as we're making sure we get those kicks, the Void Walker by itself, like these Void Walkers don't do a lot of damage with Shadow Bolt. If your cast goes off, it's not a big deal. It only matters if you're in a pull with like one of those big Shadow Rift men. So as this pull starts to go down, we are making really good pace. It was just we were kind of confused and thrown off by that last hallway not having ads. We don't know if they ever spawned because we never died or went back and checked. But very strange that can happen in this dungeon. I might actually send this to Blizzard and see if that's like, if they can do anything about it, because this has happened in like M0 runs to me. Just never happened in an actual run up until this point. And yeah. Anyways, we're going to do this pull by itself. We were talking here about possibly pulling in one of the large mobs to start getting early damage onto it, but I didn't know how it would interact with socials, so I ended up not pulling it here just to kind of be it safe, because we were like, okay, if we're getting to if we can pull the boss by like minute 22 or 23, we're going to be like feeling pretty good. So it's only minute 19 in the run, and yeah, we're kind of piss vibing. When this pack goes down, we're going to head into the left-hand side. I'm going to try to tag the far pack. Unfortunately, I only tagged like a little Voidling. I'm always going to be watching the Void Terror in my group, and then the rest of my DPS are going to set focus, I hope, to the other like Shadow Walker and just kick it. And then everyone's going to be prioing the Void Caller, which is spawning the ads, doing big AoE damage, just like a scary mob to be in combat with. I'm glad my group only pulls 2 of these. We have adjusted our route towards the end of the dungeon not to really pull that many more. We are playing Arms Warrior, which has a nasty, sizable Mortal Strike. So these mobs are actually pretty efficient for us to pull. but they're just so scary in AoE damage in these higher dungeons, especially when you have other casts going off. So, like I said, we try to avoid them as much as we possibly can, and you're going to see a really cool skip that we do at the very end of the dungeon that doesn't require a warlock, but does require, people that have brain cells and they're competent with how their class has like their mobility, basically. Now, this Devouring Tyrant is going to be very scary. This Absorb, I think, at this level of key is 2.5 times my health pool, which is really hard for a Brewmaster by themselves to get through. And our healer, basically, he just has to spam Healing Wave and pray that I live. And so I'm going to be rotating my defensives. That last one I used Fortifying Brew on. This next one I should have my Black Ox for to help take away some of that staggered damage. And then my next one I will probably end up committing Health Pod if I remember correctly. If not, we just pray. I can't remember if I have Health Pod available or not right here. Strike should be coming out in 3, 2, 1 now. Purifying Brew, Celestial Infusion, Keg Smash, Black. No, I don't actually do anything there. So we clear that really quickly. And now that we killed the 2 big men, Gemellis is spawning. But we still have 2 Voidwalkers to deal with. But what we're going to do, easy solution, we're going to pull them on the boss, because fuck it. Now, we talked about not pulling these on the boss and doing a different pack on the boss instead. That's a little bit easier to handle. But the boss, we don't have to actually chase any of the ads around while these casters are up, but we're actually going to do a pretty good job at keeping them locked down. And when they're locked down, they actually move pretty easily because they're spell locked. And so as long as we can keep the boss, the Voidwalkers, and one of the ads all on top of each other, this is going to be really, really efficient cleave for our group. So there we go. We get 2 more kicks. I'm going to be walking with these guys here. And again, all the bosses share health. And so as long as you're hitting one of them, it's pretty okay. Obviously, the more the merrier. We're then going to get a ring to try to get these guys even closer. And this is unfortunately like a weird astral grasp. But after this, we're now good. The Shadow Walkers are dead. Wasn't too lethal. We got kicks under control. Didn't overlap with any kind of weird mechanic. And now we're going to try to get these guys stacked as much as possible. Now, stacking the bosses is hard, right? The smaller little octopus guys, little squid men, little jellyfish, whatever you want to call them, they move in a static direction once they spawn. So as a tank, your goal is just to keep them obviously on top of each other. But later in the fight, you can kind of pick out a pattern that has them like stacked with each other, moving together. And so if you have like a keen eye, which I'll point out a little bit later on, it's pretty easy to get 3 of these guys stacked instead of just 2. They do share health. So if you can't keep them stacked, obviously it's shared damage. One other thing to note is if you don't clear the shield for some reason, the shield, the damage you're dealing still goes onto the ad despite the shield being active, if that makes sense. So as long as it only absorbs direct damage to that ad, but they will still take damage based on the shared mechanic, the shared health mechanic. So this is the only time you're really going to have to shift positions is when you get Neuralink. So I'm going to actually run all the way over. But what I notice is that these 2 mobs are fairly close to each other and moving in the same direction. So what I'm going to try to do is hold the boss in between these 2 ads, the one to my left and the one that's right in front of me. I'm going to roll away to try to get a chi burst here, but then I ended up getting just dragged to the poop. So that was a bad little thing on my part. And yeah, that's pretty much the fight. Now, because the mobs move at a static pace, but one is on an interior lane and one's on an exterior lane, eventually they will split up and be really far apart again. But for the time being, we're kind of just vibing. The boss is in between all 3 of them. And then now that they're split again, I'm going to try to stack them up. Here comes the Neuralink. I end up not breaking the shield, which my group was confused about. They're like, why didn't you break your shield there? And I was just like, well, the shared damage doesn't matter. As you can see, the boss is still losing health. I tried going at the last second because they brought it up, but it was like, it didn't matter at the end of the day. And now we're heading up the spire with 10 minutes left. This is actually like a crazy fast pace, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is slow for the average group, but I think playing our Fizz comp, this is actually pretty good. Fizz comp without Feral Druid, rest in peace. I'm going to have to reach out to Axton. Axton's a gangster. This pull, double Void Terror, set focus to 1, let your group handle the other. I'm just watching the one that I'm currently targeting. I committed my Ox. We're doing just like big Breath of Fire, Keg Smash rotation here. Nothing too crazy. These last 2 pulls we're going to be doing are so tame. Once you get past Gemellis, it's pretty much just like a boss rush, in my opinion, because these packs just like don't do anything. The Void Terror is just like the big focus. Once the Void Terrors die, you can like just start running with these. You just have to be a little careful of like pet AI or pet pathing. Now, luckily, we don't have any pet classes because we're playing with a Marks Hunter. But I want to be like cautious, right? Like I don't want to like accidentally run the ad above and then some kind of weird cleave effect hits mobs below while we start running up the ramp. So now that we just have these 3 shredders left, this is when I'm going to start running up the ramp. But I shouldn't say run. I guess I'm like just backpedaling here. But I just want to be careful that like nothing is accidentally cleaving the guys that we're about to walk near. And we should be good. So little voidlings are going to be at the very top of the ramp. Sometimes they are at the bottom, but they're up at the top here. And 93.33% is like almost perfect count, I think. I'm going to be marking this Void Terror, and then this is the final pull. So basically 2 back-to-back super chill pulls. I put down a purple and a moon marker. It's going to be hard to see the moon marker because my camera's just not at a good angle anymore. But basically, we're going to be skipping this next pack, not with a meld skip, but we're all going to have set mobility. And so the way this is going to work is our warrior's going to heroic leap. Our rogue is going to shadow step to the warrior. I'm going to transcend to the rogue. And then our shaman is going to gust of wind, and our hunter is going to disengage, and we're all going to make it onto the bridge without pulling the pack, and we're going to head up to the last boss with about 8 minutes left to spare, give or take. A little less than 8 minutes. So this is a really cool skip. I like this a lot. Again, this has to be coordinated beforehand. But as you can see here, warrior leaps, shadow step goes off, I transcend, and then behind me, it's gust of wind and disengage happening. I'm just like making sure that nothing got pulled just in case. And now we're heading into the final boss encounter. So I'm putting down a blue marker, which I actually quickly changed to green. That is the side my group is going to be playing on. So this is the last interesting strategy of the dungeon run. We actually have 4 players play on the same side, and I, as the tank, get a side all to myself. And the reason for this is because the soak you have to do does a fair bit of damage. It's not lethal, but it can be lethal if it overlaps and there's orbs going at you. So instead, the shaman is able to put down his healing rain and hit pretty much everyone, and then I'm going to be able to stagger soak 2 of the soaks on my side. Plus, it means that my healer can dispel me kind of wherever, and it doesn't matter, and I don't have to worry about my movement and my positioning based on the tank slam, since it's an AoE slam, right? And so we have found that this strategy, at least for Resto Shaman, is really good and efficient because everyone can stay stacked inside of that healing rain when possible, which makes group healing obviously a little bit easier. Actually, now that I think about it, I do think we end up having 1 death on this fight towards like the middle because I believe our melee accidentally like cleaved each other with orbs. One last thing you can kind of see here, our melee are stacking inside of each other with their orbs. That's because now that they don't have to actually dodge their orbs at all. You can see that they're just stacked inside of each other, and as the orbs go off, they don't do any damage, they don't hit each other. The only time they have to be careful is when they start soaking like they are going to in a bit. So our range are basically soaking on the right-hand side or on the green side. I'm soaking both on the left-hand side. If it's back-to-back, I have to roll and, soak both. But honestly, between like trinkets and defensives and celestial infusion and purifying brew, it's actually like pretty chill for me to do this. Being outside of melee range kind of sucks, but he doesn't do anything when you're outside of melee range, so you can sit out there all you want. So I'm going to end up losing a bit of damage because of this, obviously, because I'm not always in melee range, but we find that this fight just, it's so much easier for a Resto Shaman, at least, to be in this kind of position. So here we go. I'm going to soak. And yeah, this is pretty much the fight. I don't know when the melee end up killing each other. Maybe it was a different run that I'm thinking of. Dispel comes out. It's good. And I'm just repositioning kind of far. Yeah, I could probably like really milk my uptime in melee, but it's all good. So here comes Link. Gets deployed to keep our melee and our hunter alive, and then our shaman is just like off on his own, just like actually vibing, like payphoning it up. I say that, but this fight is very hard to heal. That has been made very clear to me. It might have been a different run where they died and killed each other, but maybe not. Maybe it's right here. Oh, it is right here. So Karid ran out and then hit Nama with the orb. Nama evasion, but then his orb hit Karid. And then that orb hit me. And so, yeah, it was a little bit of a shit show here. That was, I believe, our hunter should have probably soaked. But it's all good. Nothing really matters. And yeah, that was our 3rd death of the dungeon. But, dude, it's crazy to think that, like, if we were clean with this, we could have had close to 5 minutes left, 4.5 minutes left on the timer. Crazy run. honestly. But like right here's a good example. I had to kind of make a far little roll here. But honestly, not that bad. And my DPS and healer don't have to worry about anything that's going on my side. I'm confident I can make it from point A to point B pretty quickly. I have a lot of mobility. Roll is insane. I also have Tiger's Lust. And if I do happen to get hit by an orb, I can always Tiger's Lust myself as well to remove that slow. And anyways, that is our Magisters 18 timed. This wasn't our first run, like I said, but this actually run gave us 3 points. That's how fast it was. I believe our first Magisters had like 20 seconds left or 8 seconds left or something kind of crazy. So having 3.5 was pretty good. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this breakdown. Sorry about the Discord noises earlier. Anyways, I hope you're all staying happy, healthy, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.